Wicked Witches! Today I am going to make a shrine to grief. I've just been reading an incredible book which I highly recommend, Wild Edge of Sorrow, Rituals of Renewal and the Sacred Work of Grief by Frances Weller, foreword by Michael Lerner. It's an incredible book and talks about how grief is an important part of our reality, and how we, through going through grief, it's like an initiation. I even, I can feel this in myself and in the relationships of people that I love and care for who have gone through huge experiences of grief. The younger you are when you experience it, the younger you are when your reality gets destroyed, kind of the more resilient you become. I think it is harder if you're older when it happens, because you're basically, at the end of the day, you become more aware of your own mortality. Like, that's part of the experience. It's not all about you, but part of it is that you are going to die, and everyone you know and love is going to die, and there's all these different stages of grief, of like having to accept that our reality is not permanent, and it's like, that's the greatest mystery of it all, is like, why is this happening? What's this all about? Why are we here? And when you're getting older, you become closer to your own death, and you don't know how it's going to come. You don't know what shape it's going to be. You have no idea, and we don't know how each person's story is going to play out. And it's weird when someone does die, because you get to see their story and their narrative. You suddenly see the whole of their story, and depending on where it ends, it could be that it feels like a tragedy, or it could be that it feels like they did everything they needed to do. It really depends, because it just depends on when it happens. If they died 2 years before, it might have been a completely different story to them dying the year that they did. And that's just so intriguing. Like, that's such a mystery. Like, yeah. And like, it's the idea of us being like wiggly worms, when you look at us in the fourth dimension. So if you're outside of the three-dimensional world that we live in, and you can see kind of time and space, so you can see us in our entireties rather than what we experience it, which is slices of the present. We're like a slideshow of the present, which is great. We're always, and I'd say that there's a real message in that in terms of the mysteries. Like, literally, our present is the present, and the more time we spend really in the present and not in the past and in the future, but being focused and in the present and being, tuning into literally being here with ourselves, the more comfortable you can be with that. Like, that's where our place of peace is, and it's the center. You can't, it's just nothing, wherever you are, it's like that present moment. It's like, I can see a circle when I close my eyes. There's a circle, and everything, this universe, everything is in this circle. We're in it, and then right in the middle is the present, and it is this worm. We're seeing these slices of a circle, but when you look at it from the fourth dimension, you're seeing a worm, and that's us in our entirety. We start as a bunch of atoms, of cells that fizz, and then they fizz, and then they make a baby, and then the baby's born, and then we grow, and then if we get older, we like become small again, and then we become ash, or we become just the decomposed bits that go back into the soil. We become those cells again, and they get eaten and move on. So you can see this like worm, wiggly worm that is our lives, and it's only once we die that the end gets snipped, and you see what the entirety of that story is and what we become. Yeah, and it's we've just got no control over how that snip happens and when it happens and what it means. But yeah, it's a reality breaker when someone really close to you dies, and it's an important part of life's process to experience these, and you have to go through it and give yourself that space, and that it's not, there's no end result. Like, you don't come out of it. It's like an ongoing process that has different revelations at each stage. It gets more real the longer someone's been gone. You know, it's not like they say it gets easier, time heals. It's not. It changes and it shifts. It just gets more real that they're not coming back, but also that how you incorporate that into your everyday life. You know, that you take that grief, and that's your love. You know, how much you love someone, the grief will be equal to that. It's all the love that you can't give to that person, and you are going to you know, you've got to work out how to honour that grief and feel that grief and be with it whilst also living, you know. And that's what we're being asked to do still, is to still live. Everyone is going to die. We're going to have to go through that at some point, and we're still going to have to live. So part of the process that Francis Weller said in his book, which is just totally, we're so on the same wavelength, it's brilliant, is to create a shrine to grief. So I'm going to create a shrine to grief, and on it I'm going to honour the four people that I've known recently who have died, and also my grief for the theatre world and for the world that we knew, but also Mother Earth, and like, yeah, all the things. So I'm going to take this all down. It feels like a bit of a big job, and I'm not really in the mood for it, but I also feel like it's what I'm meant to do. And I've also got Mugwort with me. She's here to give me strength. She's been winking at me from the sides of the road on my bike rides for the last week. She's been like hanging over the side going, hello, 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 you need me, you need me, I need you, I need you. Oh, I can so feel how much I need you. So I've got Mama Mugwort with me. She's supporting me, and so she's going to look after me. So I'm going to begin the process and create a shrine to grief. That was a little bit easier than I thought it was going to be, not because it just, the universe was gentle with me. My period is due and I get really clumsy, so I just have done everything very slowly and very gently, and actually that was really lovely. I really needed to do that. I'll show you it a little bit closer. So we have the iconostasis in the background with the serpent swallowing its own tail. I guess there's something about DNA and life, you know, the spirals of life, the double helix, there's that kind of vibe with the snake DNA. So the woman in the background, the Swiss woman, I have there for Scott Gahuli, who's my friend who ran the Swiss Bell pub opposite my house where my mum lives and where I grew up. And I went to school with him. I was in the same class as his younger brother the whole of the way through school. And he was stabbed to death during lockdown by some kid. So remembering him. And then the house on the right was actually given to me by a lovely friend called Rebecca, who I am godmother to her son. And she made this lovely home, and it's about the home, and it's like to kind of protect you in the home. But I'm putting this here in remembrance of Kim, who's my friend who's passed away recently of a brain hemorrhage. And I'm very good friends with her husband. He's like a brother to me, and her children, her 3 daughters, who are 6, 9 and 12. And I know that she wanted them to feel safe, and she made a beautiful home for them, and it was a beautiful home. And I know how heartbroken she's going to be to know that she's leaving them behind, and the sorrow that they're going to have to live with because of that. I know that's going to break her heart. This is a birthday card sent to me by Lee at New Year, and there's a little sand crab for him down there, and that is a little piece of heather that Heather gave to me at the funeral. Or it might be rosemary. Yeah, I think it's rosemary that Heather gave to me at the funeral. We didn't get to have a proper funeral. We were just able to watch the hearse go by. That was all we were able to do. But yeah, Lee was in a motorcycle accident randomly in Brazil at the beginning of lockdown and died from complications from that. And then I've got my grandma down here who died at the beginning of lockdown as well. She fell over and broke her hip, and she was already very old and frail and unwell, and there was just no way for her to get better. And I love this object. I've done a lot of work with this object over the lockdown period. She stuck this post-it note on it saying "Impala, no ears." It makes me laugh so much. Like, why did she do that? Why did she keep it? And I made this piece of artwork that's called Grief in the Time of Corona, and that's got that impala on it, and then the corner of the card from Lee's card, and then a star and a bit of a shooting star rainbow thing that were all representing Lee. So that was for Lee and Grandma, because I was feeling their grief during lockdown. And I've also put some stones here because so there's grief for people you've lost. There's grief for parts of yourself that you've banished, and I've kind of represented them with the apple cores here. They're all bits of apple that I've eaten over the years, and then these are like the bits that you don't eat that get left behind. So any bits of myself that I felt that I need to banish because I'm ashamed of them, or like they were just not held in the right way when they came about and happened, and so they kind of got pushed to some dark recess, and I don't even know what they are. I'm forever turning the soil over and looking for them. So that's represented there. Then there's the sorrows of the world, and I have here the Extinction Rebellion patch that I made in Australia. And yeah, it's the sorrows for what we're doing to Mother Earth and what's happening to the world. And then there's what we expected and did not get. And here I have my child that I had aborted when I was at university. I call her my wee bairn, and she's now a guardian angel of mine, and she sits on my shoulder as a dove, and we have a loving relationship. She is, you know, a special being to me. She would be 19 this December, and yeah, so I'm always aware of her, and yeah, she's like a child to me still, but not one on this world. And then these are the two children that my husband and I hoped we were gonna have. One was going to be called Betty Machete Booth, and that's Betty there. And then the other one was going to be called Marinus Booth. Marinus Eunoia Atom Derwin Booth. So his initials would have been Mead Booth. And it meant ocean-loving, unbreakable wizard who sleeps in the fields with the animals, which I thought was a great name. I don't think my husband wasn't so keen, but and then we also have Ancestral Grief, and I have that represented here. There's the cord around it, which is the cord for me that means Mary Magdalene, and you know what she's gone through in terms of ancestral lineage of the female, and how the female has been demonized and remembered in the twisted ways. So I wore that for a long time around my wrist in thinking of her. And then there's just the, you know, all of the stuff that we get caught up with, that when we're born into the world, there's a lot of stuff in my family with child abuse that has been passed on to me personally, like that's part of my stuff and reality, and just like, yeah, all of the stuff. And then there's also drowning for me is a big one, and the witch trials, I'm pretty sure I was drowned in a past life, so there's kind of past life stuff. And then I've just put this here, which is also like things that are lost. This is, for me, this represents the friendship of Lee with another dear friend of mine, his best friend Ro. It's the sort of thing that they do with each other and did with each other, is put little goggly eyes on things, and it suddenly makes them feel alive. And I really feel a lot of grief for their friendship, and I feel really sad for Ro that she's lost her best friend. They were such a special pair together, and like, she's, you know, it's going to be a difficult ride for her to have lost him. And yeah, sad that we won't get to see them playing with each other. So that's my shrine to grief, and then I'm going to create a ritual around it. And yeah, I feel like I've been held all the way through that with Mugwort. She's been there for me. So I'm going to, in the next video, create a ritual for grief.